My name is Dane Christensen and I am the founding director of the In and Out Fitness organisation and the creator of the post-war Survive to Thrive program. It was the creation of the post-war Survive to Thrive program that led me to start In and Out. So In and Out is for those in and out of the Defence Force, and how we look on the outside is actually only benefited from how we feel within. When I first got out, people would ask, are you in or out? Like it made any difference. The thing about military experiences is they stay with you forever. So the positive experiences stay with you forever, and the negative experiences can too if you don't do the work to overcome those adversities. I'm an East Timor and Iraq veteran, and I served in the 5th 7th Royal Australian Regiment, an infantry battalion, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, severe anxiety, major depression and alcohol abuse in 2009. The thing we train for, is being able to efficiently get a job done in combat or within any war zone. There was no manual for coming home.
So I met my husband Dane about 5 years ago, and we met through my brother-in-law actually. I was in America, he was in Australia, and we just started out as pen pals. But we had an instant connection. We were emailing, started texting, phone calls started happening. This was going on multiple times a day for probably the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And after about three weeks or so, the emails and the phone calls just stopped out of nowhere. And I started to think, did I say something? Was there something that I had done? And I hadn't heard from him for a couple of days, which I thought was really odd. So I ended up just sending a message to one of his friends just to make sure he was okay. And his friend told me, don't worry about it. That's just what Dane does. He just kind of becomes a recluse, doesn't leave his house for about a week. It's just what he does. And then after about a week's time, he kind of snaps out of it and acts like nothing happened. So right then I kind of realized something wasn't quite right. And he was exactly right. A week later, Dane calls me out of the blue, acts like nothing ever happened. And I thought, what's going on here? And that's when Dane opened up to me and told me that he was really battling with depression and anxiety. And I believe recently he had just been diagnosed with PTSD as well. So I started to take a lot of research into my own hands on post-traumatic stress disorder because I didn't really know much about it either, aside from what Dane had told me. But he ended up coming out to America and visiting me after a few months' time and stayed with me for about 4 months. And he had gotten to America and I noticed that the drinking had started. Dane was drinking all the time. I had to go to work throughout the day, and I would ring Dane, and he was at the pub drinking. And I kind of let it go for a bit. Dane kind of pushed it off as, oh, I'm just on holidays, and this is just what people do. So I kind of let it go. And then I ended up moving to Australia to be with Dane. And I started to notice more red flags of the PTSD, things such as just doing everyday things like going grocery shopping or just going to the mall or going out for dinner at a crowded restaurant. Things that we normally would take for granted were really, really difficult for Dane to do, which made it really difficult for me as well because we'd go to a grocery and Dane had to get out of there within 3 minutes because he would just have a panic attack. I'd be worried about going out at night to a bar or to a restaurant because I was afraid that if the waiter or if anyone had just said something to Dane that could be construed as negative, it would send Dane off the handle, which would make me incredibly anxious all the time because I was just worried about what was going to happen.
The fitness side does not just relate to physical fitness on its own. You have to be fit holistically. We need to be fit psychologically and emotionally to become defence members. We need to be fit to sustain solid relationships and be comfortable within our environments. And we need to be fit to deal with day-to-day problems and challenges. After war, this can be extremely difficult. Paranoia can set into our everyday lives and it can get to the point where you actually start believing people are thinking things about you. It can be as bad as, us experiencing extreme anger, irritability, frustration, uncontrollable worry, hypersensitivity, hypervigilance, being easily startled, feelings of grief, and sometimes, even feelings of shame. And all these effects, without understanding the methods to survive and thrive, there is actually only one way we can go, and it's into a depressed state of mind. And suicide will always become an option if you have to live in that much chaos. And we need to rebuild skills and endurance for resilience, not just of the body, but most importantly, the mind.
Sure, well, I first met Dane when he came to SRC to present his Survive to Thrive program. And from there, it really awoke like a movement in myself. And that movement was to take responsibility and seek personal development for my mental injuries, because I'd been struggling a lot. And the biggest struggle I was having was fighting to pretend I didn't have it. I was pretending I didn't have mental injuries. I was lying to myself. I was putting in so much effort to pretending that I didn't have a mental injury. And then Dane came along and he presented his program, and it really opened my eyes to, the self-empowerment and the role that I could have in my own recovery. After the post-war Survive to Thrive, it almost been on a personal renaissance. So with my own self-development, getting involved with In and Out Fitness and studying my Cert 3 and 4 through them, and trying to get other guys involved as well, and understanding that the mental stimulation is something that we need to put more emphasis on when it comes to our personal training. Personal development and personal analysis and growth is something I've really been put on that path now after being involved with Survive to Thrive. I would say that my life now is I'm almost living a deliberate life. What I do, I have a reason and I take action for that. And those reasons are going to have a positive effect on my life. Before that, I felt like I was floating and I didn't have control over the direction I was going. Realistically, my emotions were controlling me. My anger, my self-loathing, my fear, all those negative, tainted emotions were clouding my perspective of my life. And now I'm trying to take that back one step at a time and moving forward.
I've recently just come into the Survive to Thrive program. Met Dane, great guy, wanting to really do the best by soldiers, and guys getting out to have that holistic rehabilitation, working with them in a sense to give them that sense of community, camaraderie, something that can be easily missed once people do leave the army. Mental illness is something that is almost considered the ugly stepchild that no one wants to see, no one wants to hear about, it doesn't want to be talked about. But in reality, mental illness or health where anxieties or depressions can be created is regular society. People can get it from driving in traffic, people can get it from stress at work, where it's a little bit different and elevated when you've been to a war zone and you've seen horrendous things or been ramped up in massive action. And coming back to society where obviously it's quite mundane, it does obviously create issues in a sense where it's hard to pull yourself away from them. And really, these sorts of programs are only going to be beneficial, where we can move forward, acknowledge that there are issues, but realise that they're issues that everyone goes through in either less or greater extent.
My career or aspirations to be an Australian soldier actually came from my grandfather. That's the inspiration that fueled my motivation in that part of my life. He had overcome a lot of adversities in his life, and he found solace within the Defence Force, and he found meaning and validation and reason to live, and that was through protecting the country and helping others in the process.
In the first week of 1952, I returned to Australia from Korea after having spent 12 months at the war. I was in the Battle of Kap Yong and Marianne Sang. I received a burst of 5 rounds in the leg by an enemy machine gun. This deployment proved to be devastating to my health. I found that I could not talk to civilians. I could talk to the soldiers, but I could not talk to civilians back home or my family. This was part of a telling time for me in my life. I had witnessed the killing of South Korean children and their parents. The North Koreans were very cruel. They treated the South Koreans with no respect. I did not know what it was, but I'm sure I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. I had to keep everything to myself as there was no help available for me. When I went to the RAP, they gave me a number 9 tablet and dismissed me. Basically, that is for help so that you go to the toilet for a stress relief. The doctors and DVA did not understand what PTSD was at that time. If I was talking to the men and women of the Defence Force today, I would tell them not to suffer in silence like we had to. The Defence Force is all about taking the initiative. So take the initiative and get the help you need.
The only advice I remember was 6 words. The first 2 were harden up, the next 4 was go see the Padre. And I never actually knew what PTSD was until I had my breakdown in 2007 and finally got my diagnosis in 2009. Back in 2005 when I got back from Iraq, I can't remember any awareness. I wasn't on Facebook or anything like that. After my 3rd really bad breakdown with post-traumatic stress disorder, the thought of leaving my room and facing the day or answering a phone or operating on any level made me sick to my stomach. And finally I knew I really had to get help or I was going to become another suicide victim. I just couldn't live like that anymore. Never in my life did I think when I went to get help from the Department of Veteran Affairs at the time, would I be interrogated? And it was quite a traumatizing level for me at that time. I felt like I was, completely had everything about my service interrogated. And I didn't feel like there was the compassion that should have been there. And I didn't really believe that when I got home, I was going to experience what I experienced when I got out. I felt like, the trauma had begun all over again from going through that. I just was always feeling like within that experience, it was the unknown. I was never given a date for when things were going to, go in my favour.
I think with Dane's post-traumatic stress disorder, and with anyone that has a partner with PTSD, I don't think everyone realizes how much of an impact it can actually have on the spouse. And in saying that, I know, Dane has his good days and he would have his bad days. And with the bad days, you really feel like you have to walk on eggshells because anything that you say that could have any kind of negative connotation with it could send him over the edge into a heat of aggression. Things started to change for Dane. We're actually outside of Bunnings and we had just been getting some stuff for our house renovation, and he just had a massive breakdown in the car, crying and everything, and he had just been so frustrated with how his life had been going and the impact it was having on me as well. We had tried to go through programs with DVA, but unfortunately the programs just didn't relate to us. They related more towards older veterans, and we just didn't feel like it was having any kind of help for us. So throughout Dane's breakdown, I just told him, things can change today.
Finally, when my conditions were accepted, I had to wait 16 weeks before I could get onto a PTSD course to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. And I kept asking questions and I got really vague answers throughout the course. And I wanted something better than that. I wanted something more efficient where it was presented by real veterans who had dealt with PTSD, they'd overcome the worst of their adversities. They knew how to apply real principles and methods, not just to survive but thrive in their life. There was principles and methods for us to do everything to a very detailed state in the Defence Force. And I needed that. I needed that in my life. And I stopped looking at the problems in my life, and finally I got to a stage where I knew I had to take the responsibility. I realised that no one was going to do it for me, and I needed to stop looking at the problems and find real solutions. The principles I found of survival with mental or physical injuries is reaching a state of acceptance is your first state. And now, when I reached this state, it felt like I was going to be burnt at the stake. I was terrified of what the world would think of me. But it was the platform of recovery. I could now work with what I had and I could move forward. And before I knew it, I actually had more mates and I had more support than I did before the breakdown. And I couldn't believe it. Some of the hardest blokes I knew were suffering. And it took me to stand up for the rest of them too as well. The second principle for survival is being educated and understanding triggers and That was the second principle. Thriving was by building ourselves back up spiritually and creating a new belief through inspiration. Motivation is where you really get your confidence and empowerment back. And dedication is the most important part of living with post-traumatic stress disorder or any mental injury sustained from war. Because one day life is going to be amazing and you're going to think that you're healed and you're going to think that everything's great, and the next thing you know, you're going to be laying on your back and you're going to be thinking, how did I get back here? Then you're going to go through the principles again to get back up on your feet. But trust me, I've lived within these principles every day. I still have PTSD. I've had to accept that I have to do things differently now, but I can still achieve greatness in my life, and you can too. You can actually go further in your life with PTSD if you apply key principles to be happy in 5 areas of your life, which is spiritually, psychologically, and emotionally, physically, within your relationships and within your environments. And when you set those as goals, you can go to places you never knew possible. We are here to teach people that pain can actually be your best friend and the inspiration for others, to help others. And I had a dream that if this program was to help me and I saved just one life of another, then it was a huge success. And when we lose a brother or sister or one of their family members, it affects our entire community. I've been lucky enough to prevent quite a lot more than that through the creation of this program, and now I'm ready to share it to the world. We are taking the program online globally. It's going to be accessible to anyone at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If a veteran is suffering through the system, help is right there at their fingertips. It's a confronting program, it's a confronting course. It takes hard work to overcome some of our adversities. It takes forming new habits, thinking in new ways. It's exhausting at times, tiring, but it's actually worse not to face your fears. It is worse to let the black dog bite at you all day.
Hi, my name is Ben Davern. I'm a medic in the Australian Army. I joined in 2005. I was infantry initially and then changed over to be a medic. I've been deployed 4 times now, and of recent I got back from Afghanistan in 2013 where I was a platoon medic for a platoon from the 2nd Commando Regiment. I was diagnosed with PTSD in 2013 and it's been a very tough struggle for myself and my family, and being able to meet people like Dane from In and Out and all of his network and people from OnFit, and being invited to attend the Post-War Survive and Thrive has truly been life-changing for myself and my family. He has opened up new ways of thinking that I didn't believe was possible, and with the changes in my thought process, it's really helped me progress and thrive, as Dane puts it, as opposed to just survive, which is where I felt I was definitely at prior to being diagnosed with PTSD.
So I'm Dr. Kira Buchanan. I'm a clinical psychologist and a health psychologist. So I heard that Dane had a similar approach to me in using like a holistic treatment approach, so using nutrition, exercise, and I guess social psychological support. I think by having veterans as motivational speakers and personal trainers, it gives like a real normalising effect. So I think one of the big problems with a lot of mental health conditions is that people think they're the only ones going through that struggle, which then exacerbates depression and anxiety. So knowing that there's other guys just like them that are going through the same thing that they're going through, I think that in itself is really useful.
Yeah, look, my transition has been, I couldn't have asked for a better transition, and this program has it helped with that transition immensely. Look, and it's great. A big effort, like a main effort of the program, is to provide that positivity with the guys that are suffering, which, you know, it's a great thing, because I feel I can help those sort of guys create that positive outlook on life. You know, I've heard of cases like when people do discharge from the military, they sort of get caught up in their own sort of world and don't catch up with extra-military members, which I think is it's a good thing to do. And this program has it's given us that opportunity to catch up with ex-regiment boys and and just have a chat, do some study and work towards a common goal.
When we found out about Dane and his program, the post-war Survive to Thrive program, and his initiatives in regards to transitioning soldiers, we couldn't help but want to be involved. It was so a fabulous opportunity. We saw that we could help the community in many ways, and in one of them is at least by making it a little bit more affordable for transitioning soldiers and their partners to get involved in the program. And so we came to an agreement with Dane to support each other and work through this so that it could change the world.
Well, I actually went to the last post-war Survive to Thrive program myself, and that seminar was for a couple of hours. It was absolutely amazing. I sat through the entire seminar. There were a range of people in there. There were people who were still in the Defence Force, people who had left Defence, and a lot of people had their partners with them as well. I think what was most emotional for me was, number one, I learnt a lot about the post-traumatic stress disorder myself that I hadn't understood before, but I also could see how well both Dane and Lex connected to everyone in that room. And to see somebody like Lex actually become a motivational speaker through this program was also just incredibly powerful. So, yeah, to be honest, I will never forget that session. It was amazing.
Well, I was also at the seminar and I was also blown away by it. It was just an emotional experience, and I guess it was to see it finally happen and to see the changes it can make for people was exceptional. However, I see that to leverage, to be able to change the world, to be able to affect more people, the best thing to do is to capture what was captured in that room and see if we could help more people. And because we're an online education company, we saw the huge opportunity that we could try to capture some of the emotions, some of the knowledge of post-traumatic stress disorder, and see if we can get that out to more people by putting it as an online product. It also gave the opportunity, I suppose, by seeing some of the professionals that were involved and the importance of what life coaches and personal trainers that have been in the Defence Force and how they can share their experiences will touch so many more people's lives. And so we really feel there's an opportunity to spread the word.
All right, I came along today to In and Out Fitness's Survive to Thrive program, mainly to see how I could help some of the clients that I help with PTSD moving forward with their careers post-ADF. The parts that really resonated was equating how it was a matter of fact that most people are going to come out with PTSD and that it's perfectly acceptable, and to let go of the stigma, and that there is still value for every single person that has had ADF training, and that you can move forward with your life with a program like this. I've put my absolute faith in this program to help move forward with your life. It's time to take that action.
Hi, my name is Robin Collins and I'm the General Manager of Defence Care. Today I was privileged to see In and Out Fitness Organisation's post-war Survive to Thrive program. I've known Dane for over a year and his journey through PTS and recovery is truly inspirational.
I definitely think that a program like this is helping. It's a positive approach for current and former soldiers coming together and talking about what they're going through and how they're going to take control of their life.
I thought the program was fantastic. I thought it was very friendly and relaxed. Suffering severely with PTSD, I have to say I didn't sleep at all last night, and I was very anxious about attending a seminar that was based on me dealing with why my life is falling apart. When I got here, everyone was friendly. It was a supportive environment. There was quite a good sense of humour in the room, much like all of my experiences in the military. And the information was delivered in a really precise, relevant, succinct manner that just sunk in and really hit home. There was times that it was quite emotional, but all positive emotions, and it was a real honour to be in a room with people going through the same thing and all moving forward in a positive direction.
So something I'd like to say to other spouses out there that are dealing with their partners with post-traumatic stress disorder. I know from a couple of years back, Dane has come leaps and bounds from where we started, and it all comes down to a holistic approach with In and Out Fitness. It's not only about the teamwork and the friends that he's made through this organization, but also lifestyle changes, dietary changes. Him and I exercise daily together, and that's really brought our relationship closer as well. But his recovery is not only his, it's also mine as a partner, and it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of patience from us, and it takes a lot of acceptance as well, to accept his condition and know that it's not going to go away, but it will get better. But it takes commitment from both partners in order to do that. And as long as you're both willing to do it, there's no telling how far you can come.
You have to be real with yourself at the end of the day. You have to take responsibility for what you can control. And then you have to ask yourself, am I really doing the work? Am I getting up every single day? Am I working on myself physically? Am I eating correctly for my mood? Am I going to anger management classes? Am I learning conflict resolution strategies? Am I doing whatever it takes to overcome the adversities of the feelings and emotions that you're feeling? You have to ask yourself at the end of the day, do I want to become a victim? I could sit there and play the blame game all day. You cannot play the blame game in this anymore if you want to move forward. You can't sit there and blame Department of Veteran Affairs all the time. You can't sit there and blame your family or your mates that left you or your family that aren't being there for you when you feel as though that you need the support. You need to figure out what you can do to overcome the adversities that you are going through. You have to build those support networks. You have to know how to do that. You have to learn the principles. At the end of the day, I think you have to ask yourself, am I being a victim or am I being a victor?